Maybe I'll start off with a simple question. Why generative AI? And simply put, it is a new way to empower your people to generate content. Words, visual, auditory. And I think that this will be able to help your company's journeys, sustainability journeys. So let me do a brief intro, and then I'll ask each of the panelists to introduce yourselves as well. My name is Omar Rivera de Leon, and I work at Microsoft as an industry advisor. I work with leading retail companies to help them transform the retail experience. And now let me pass it over.
Hi, so my name is Simin. I am the head of product of Greenprint. For those who don't know what Greenprint is, we are actually a venture that has been incubated within the MAS, the Monetary Authority of Singapore. And we've spun out last November looking at helping all companies generate and understand their emissions, their social and governance metrics in order to fulfill downstream use cases. And we'll talk a bit about the downstream use cases later on around supply chain, around financing, around whether or not it is simply something that you have to do because it can help your business capture new markets in this net zero transition economy.
Hi, my name is Leiming Chen. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer of Ant International. In terms of what I do, really is working with our business colleagues, really found solutions combined with our business direction strategy and a push for sustainability agenda. Why Ant? Why SME? Obviously, SME is a huge component of the economy and the society. According to World Bank statistics, SMEs contribute to 90% of the business globally, 50% of the employment globally again, and 40% of GDP globally. It's a very significant part of our business society. Now, working with them in the sustainability front, as a technology company, try to leverage technology innovation to push for that innovation. Sustainability agenda is something that we have been focusing on investing over the past few years. Now, at Ant International, we certainly is a big part of that globally. Our sustainability, ESG strategy pillars are essentially tech innovation, number one. Number two, green development, together with digital inclusion and open ecosystem. So with that, we look at this opportunity, we see what we can do to empower SMEs, not only achieve digital inclusion, financial inclusion, but also sustainability inclusion.
Hi, my name is Kento Miura, Persefoni Japan Country Manager. I have been in tech industry for around 30 years, working for NTT, Microsoft, Dell, and previously Apple. And my passion is leveraging technology to enrich customers' lives, work or lives. And now currently working for Persefoni, which is a climate tech company founded in the US. And we are providing a software platform on SaaS to corporations and financial firms, enabling them to do the right carbon accounting. What is carbon accounting? Carbon accounting is a measurement for carbon footprint. So calculating GHG, greenhouse gas emissions, and analysis and reporting for that climate-related disclosure.
Thank you very much, and welcome everyone. Just before we jump into the questions, I'll add a couple more comments. Generative AI versus traditional AI. I think for today's topic, compared to traditional AI, generative AI has a much lower barrier to access, which is really important for the SMEs. Here in Asia, we're seeing companies apply GenAI throughout the value chain, whether it's in product development, manufacturing, customer service, marketing, just to name a few. And I think for Japan, this is particularly relevant. SMEs account for around 70% of the workforce here and make up around 99% of all the companies in Japan. But obviously, they don't have the same level of resources that large organizations have. So I'm wondering if maybe each of the panelists can comment on what are some of those key challenges or opportunities that you see for SMEs, and is GenAI a game changer in this space? Simin, why don't we start with you?
Sure. SMEs in the sustainability space face a different kind of challenge. And Greenprint, when we started our journey, we first went to the banks, the listed companies, and we say, hey, let us solve your ESG data needs. And then many of these needs ended up trickling down to the SMEs. And then we decided we should talk to the SMEs as well. And when we speak with the SMEs, you've got a whole range of different type of SMEs, because you also realize there's micro SMEs, there's SMEs in emitting sector, there's SMEs in office spaces, and they're all quite different. What they face as a challenge around sustainability is that there is no incentives for SMEs to do any sustainability disclosure at this moment. All they have is disincentives, actually, not quite compliance purposes, but somebody's asking them for information. They don't know why they're disclosing. They don't know how to disclose even, and they're expected to pass over the information. Now, it brings us back to GenAI as a use case. We realize, as in our thinking about the product, GenAI can actually help SMEs understand sustainability disclosure, and that's the most important part. The reason why they don't start is primarily because they don't understand. The beauty of GenAI is its ability to create wonderful content, sometimes even more wonderful than experts can create. Like, truly, when you get an expert to write an ESG report versus you get GenAI to write an ESG report, the quality might be very different, but at the very least, an SME could interact with those intelligence, and they could ask more questions and can learn in real time. So Greenprint has been embedding quite a lot of GenAI use cases onto the application. And I must say it's primarily powered by the knowledge of Microsoft. We didn't really know much about GenAI. We don't know about the models. We don't know about first times considering the responsible use of AI. But one thing to highlight is that as you are building out GenAI capabilities for SMEs, you have got to think about the downstream impact of what if the answer is wrong, how are you making sure you're protecting them, because they do lack that level of knowledge to assess the quality of ESG answers as well. So work with a trusted party, a knowledge expert to help craft that. So the challenge actually comes from an SME perspective, and for the technology companies building out that solution as well.
Fantastic points, thank you. Leiming, how about the Ant Group?
Sure, I just add on what Simin has mentioned. I think there, what I can see is really 4 aspects of the challenges. Number one, I think a lot of regulators and capital markets have adopted taxonomies and all the disclosure requirements, but there's no commonly accepted taxonomy for SMEs, and I think they really sort of the complexity of the business and supply chain for in which SMEs are involved that creates additional issues in setting a commonly accepted taxonomies. The second one really is there isn't a data governance framework to really help SMEs to collect, track, and analyze data to ensure the accuracy, completeness, and trustworthiness of the data. So how we sort of set that up for them that can be easily used by all the sort of supply chain players in the stakeholder area. The thirdly, obviously, very important cost. SMEs, and they try to survive each day, and the costs related to their daily operations is already high. Now, sustainability, green disclosure obligations creates another layer of cost. So, for us, private sector players work in that area, how to help them to reduce the cost of compliance. That is also very important. Now, thirdly, product innovation, how we can sort of come up with something that easy for SMEs to adapt. Now, we have, throughout our journey servicing SMEs, we really have been looking at this aspect seriously, and through our in-house developed some software products, we are looking at how we can sort of deploy for SMEs. Now, for example, we have the internally developed software product called Carbon Matrix that help us to visualize the whole life cycle of the carbon footprint journey and how we manage that in terms of data. So those are the four sort of challenges we see as a technology company. Certainly, we look at innovation. We look at how we can really address those challenges in that process. AI, obviously, very important, but how we sort of leverage that AI technology, GenAI technology, to really help SMEs to, beef up their knowledge, enhance their mind share in terms of sustainability. That's really on our shoulders. So I think it's easy to be said, and a lot of things we are discussing, and the previous panel already mentioned a lot of things that we all sort of think through. But on a daily basis, how we sort of help SMEs to reduce that burden and make that easier. Now, incentive, clearly we talked about, Simin talked about how we can sort of connect that, incentive for SMEs in that sustainability journey to have better access to, for example, green financing opportunities, and how we develop other tools to give SMEs the incentive for them to really become more proactive rather than defensive.
That's great. Thank you very much. It's certainly not just about the stick. There has to be the incentive that you were speaking of. Miura-san, what do you see in the Japanese market? Where are the SMEs pointing?
Sure, thank you. And it's really well covered by two professionals already, but I'm focusing on more like climate-related disclosure. And from that climate disclosure perspectives, Japanese SMEs, or even like the global SMEs, have two main pressures. First pressure is from regulation, as you described, and secondly, probably pressure from supply chain, pressure from customers in supply chain as suppliers. And the first one, really briefly, regulation, climate-related regulation. It's recent, for example, this week, March 7th, SSBJ, Sustainable Standards Board of Japan, is going to publish a draft of guidance how to apply with IFRS S2 climate-related disclosures to Japanese corporations and financial firms. So it would be really a big, significant topic in Japan in 2024, how to comply with the new guideline. And additionally, the regulation, recent regulation, last week in the US, the US SEC released Sunshine Act notice of a meeting to consider adoption of climate-related disclosure rule. So it's the climate-related disclosure rule has been really driven significantly recently and in 2024. However, on the other hand, SMEs have another pressure, especially in Japanese small manufacturers, from suppliers. That, for example, I worked for Apple previously, working for Persefoni, and Apple is setting really high bar for not only price, quality of product service, but also greenhouse gas emissions. If Apple is achieving carbon neutral, all supply chain should contribute to that product and services to achieve it as one supply chain. However, as discussed, SME doesn't always have resources to do that. So generative AI or even like general AI is really important for SMEs to utilize it and driving sustainability efficiently and effectively.
Thank you very much. Certainly resources is a key challenge. This is the FinTech Festival, so I'm sure there's some people out there that are thinking of the way forwards and new solutions to help with that problem. When I was listening to you earlier, it made me think from an SME's perspective, are we now at an inflection point? Do the SMEs, putting myself in their shoes, do I need to go on this journey? What's your viewpoint, Simin?
Greenprint having been launched in its MVP stage, we actually did open up our beta to SMEs, primarily only focusing on SMEs. To my surprise, and this is happening in Singapore to start with, so many SMEs turn up for the beta, even though the word on the street is SMEs won't care, there's no incentives, they won't want to do it. So we had an opportunity to ask these SMEs, why are they even here? Why does it matter? A lot of times these are related to global pressures. So things that you are working with a company based out of the EU, you are getting financing from global investors, to some extent, your banks is actually asking you for those information because banks also have their own net zero portfolio timelines. So we do start to see these coming, and this is coming in a market like Singapore where there is no mandatory disclosure for SMEs. There is a level of mandatory disclosure for listed companies, which will not hit until 2025. So you see, it is a market where it's not coming in from a compliance angle. Now, in the conversation with SMEs, we start to realize that inflection point might not necessarily have to be driven by global pressures. It could also come from SMEs, just what Leiming was saying, right? They worry about their daily operations. They worry about making money. Actually, going on a decarbonization pathway could give you a lot more opportunity. So Greenprint is flipping the coin on its head and start to think about what are the use cases. Can we gather industry feedback and work with the industry to then start to identify use cases, relevant use cases that would benefit an SME. So examples again, right? Financing being one part of it, green financing, but transition financing. When it comes to simply recommendations for decarbonization, do you know how much money you save just by re-looking at your operations, re-looking at the grid that you are using, re-looking at how you are fueling your fleet? Many of these are immediate, tangible benefits that SME can get. That's got nothing to do with ESG reporting, but everything to do with helping your business stay more resilient. Now, the next wave then, I feel that might drive the inflection point is the ability to start noticing that there are new markets you can get into that sets you at an advantage because you are better with your ESG score, even ESG measurement. So start to think about things in both ways. It's not truly just a compliance-driven market, that there could be natural opportunities that fit into an SME life cycle in this.
That's great. Thank you very much. And Leiming, I've heard that there is some concern balancing sort of the energy-intensive nature of generative AI and trying to attain one's own sustainability goals. Do you have a viewpoint on this?
Sure. No, this is very interesting. I think the cost and burden of solution should not become a new problem. That is exactly what you're really driving at. We all know GenAI requires huge, computing capabilities, which requires a lot of power consumption. So how we sort of balance that for SMEs? We already talked about cost, knowledge, resources, the constraints on SMEs. Now, we certainly think AI is a great tool in that journey. But at the same time, we also look at whether there are ways for SMEs to utilize that technology and the tools, related tools, in a more energy efficient way and a cost-effective way. Still too early to say. We're still at the very beginning of this journey. But we're, as a technology company, we're constantly looking at possible solutions. We all talk about LLM, but what about small language models for SMEs? That's a possibility. But in addition to AI, other technologies we think would create proactive benefits for SMEs in that process. For example, blockchain, that would help integrity of the data. We all sort of talk about data integrity, trustworthiness, etc. And also our privacy-enhancing computing technology, that would be very, very good for SMEs when you talk about data, green data, cross-border green data usage. So there are ways that we can tangibly help SMEs through technology. I think really sort of shift that mindset from defense, compliance, and defensiveness to proactive sort of managing that process to bring benefit to their business development. That is the key thing. So we certainly think this whole process should be driven by public and private cooperations. We're involved in many this sort of initiatives, for example, Project Greenprint, MAS, and with other stakeholders launched data points. And Project Savannah, also we're working with MAS on taxonomy. So together with all those initiatives, I think we're going to get there.
That's great. Thank you very much. Miura-san, I imagine in the audience today, there's a number of sustainability leaders or people that might belong to sustainability departments and divisions. Do you have any sort of key messages or specific advice you might want to offer them?
Sure. It's not advice. It's more like my thoughts that I've talked with mainly Japanese sustainability department and people, like probably over 1,000 people in the last 2 years. And then most of them are belonging to SMEs, of course, in Japan. And SMEs have not so much resources. However, the sustainability division needs to comply with a lot of regulations, satisfy with needs from external sustainability stakeholders. And they have a lot to do, but they do not have any resource and investment. That's I have been feeling really sorry about it. But a good thing is AI, especially generative AI, is very helpful for them to do at least not ESG environment, trying to achieve carbon accounting in a right manner, reporting their carbon footprint rightly to regulators, and satisfy with the needs from their suppliers and customers. How AI, generative AI, supports SME's sustainability division? First of all, especially ESG, environment, carbon accounting, the first challenge for the sustainability division is what to do first. And generative AI is able to navigate SME's sustainability division, how to do, what to do first, step by step. And generative AI could answer their questions immediately. That is huge benefit, leveraging technology to do the right thing efficiently and effectively for carbon accounting. Secondly, to do the right carbon accounting, exchanging data with external parties, customers, partners is really key point. And as described, data standardization and improved data quality is one of the key success factors. Generative AI is really helpful to improve the data quality and accuracy drastically. And thirdly, leveraging with AI, customer support like answering question is mostly automated, so that like again, carbon accounting area, for example, for my company, Persefoni is providing Persefoni Pro, a free version of our carbon accounting software on cloud base to SMEs customers for scope 1 and scope 2 calculation only. But the cost investment are really slim at SMEs, especially sustainability development, which is a bit cost center and back office type of work. So that we decided to provide that free version of software to help SMEs sustainability division to do the right measurement for carbon footprint. And as Omar mentioned, in Japan, most of companies and most of carbon footprint is coming from SMEs. So not only Persefoni, but also many tech companies are trying to help SMEs sustainability division. So please leverage our technology to make your work and life easier.
Thank you very much. So we heard quite a bit about the different challenges, a little bit about the opportunities. Let me just go back to the opportunities. So in your respective markets or with your customers, the people that you're working with, the community voice, what are some of the key opportunities that you might have heard of from SMEs?
The market in Singapore has got only a sliver of SMEs. Actually, where we're looking at is going beyond Singapore to look at all the SMEs as in the emerging markets or our neighbors or in markets that matters. There's plenty of opportunities for GenAI use case. I think, and also with Persefoni, they've touched on quite a number of them. The GenAI use case in automating solutions out to SMEs come in many forms. And in Greenprint, we've also identified quite a few that I think has got massive potential. I mean, one of which I talked about earlier was content generation. Look, it's very hard to generate ESG content. If using GenAI, you could contextualize basic information that can be very easily collected from an SME without even asking them, right? They exist in your corporate registries, they exist in your utility bills. Ingest those and generate those answers for an SME right off the bat as a start. Click on a button, it exists. This allows them to understand and come in touch with their ESG data almost immediately. And then they could come in and they could make all of those changes. I think the other use case that we were really excited about with GenAI is the ability to make recommendations. The problem with ESG is that if you look into historical data, you can never really understand what the future looks like. And with GenAI, it's a perfect use case, right? You learn from old data, but it generates new data set to create content that you might not have expected down the line. So we're also then looking at how about recommendations for reduction? How about after you figure out how should you reduce, how about we bring in solutions that could help you reduce? Now you know which solutions you should be tapping into. Then how about we bring in the financing opportunities that you could tap into to deploy those solutions? And this is where we start with a very basic understanding of ESG data and carry them all the way through to ultimately benefiting from making a disclosure. And I think that's where the opportunity lies, not the fixation on data, but actually the fixation on what use cases can you bring to an SME that would help them in their journey.
That's fantastic. Yeah, certainly when we're talking to our customers, they need to reduce, they need to be more efficient, but the first step is record. Before you can even report, what data exists, what does it actually mean, contextualize that, and then move forward as you're speaking. How about the Ant Group? I know you're supporting this incredible customer base of SMEs.
Sure. I think the opportunity really is, in addition to what we all discussed, one thing I would emphasize again really is the linking the incentive with what they must comply. The incentive really, based on our experience, one example really is, my bank, our virtual bank in China, has launched this green rating system for SMEs, where SMEs are rated based on their transaction data and other activity data on other related activities, and we found the SMEs with a better green rating, they perform better in terms of business, and also on the sustainability side, then they have better access to green financing activities and bring tangible benefits in that process. So I think there are many of this type of opportunities, and certainly green print is something that we as a company very focused on in this initiative. Just advertisement. 4:45, we're going to have a side event on that. Mr. Mahoney is here. We're going to have some discussions on that. You're welcome to join.
Thank you. Miura-san, how about, I know you mentioned in your last bit some of the opportunities, but is there that shiny penny that you see out there in the Japanese SME market?
Sure. Again, that's an Apple example. But I was talking to Apple's supplier, a really small manufacturing company in Kyushu area. And he was complaining to me that Apple is really demanding, their expectation on cost is low, quality is high. In addition to it, ESG is now a kind of like a lot of information needed. But the president of the company told me that, however, they worked really hard to satisfy with that Apple standard expectation. Then the business came from other big manufacturing companies, so that they really work hard on ESG, then improve their ESG reporting. Then their business was mainly like 95% Apple, but it's now like 60% Apple, 40% other vendors, which is around 40% is purely incremental. So if probably most of SMEs don't feel that kind of opportunity yet, but again, as we discussed, ESG requirement, climate disclosure is like really getting tipping point in 24 and 25. So that if SMEs start earlier working on ESG, they would get the fast move advantages, such as like the example I mentioned for Apple supplier.
That's a great example. So we're down to our last few minutes. I just wanted to give each of the panelists a final chance. If you have a particular call to action, we've got a full room here, all these people thinking about how to help SMEs. So if you have a call to action, then please share it with the group.
I think a quick one, and actually Leiming has talked about it, very, very, very good point. The big call to action is that there is no one solution that can solve this problem alone. And the stakeholder ecosystem is so big. The only thing we want, actually, the one thing that we call out to the audience is if you feel like you have a role to play, you are a financier, you are a large tech company, you are a fintech or ESG tech yourself, you are an SME, you have an audience, we would love to collaborate. Greenprint with Greenprint Hub is about also building out the ecosystem, enough solution and innovators coming together to solve the problem together. So that's one thing that I'll leave with the audience.
Thank you. Leiming?
Same point. I think from my perspective, from our perspective, really is, I think big companies, they're primarily driven by regulators and shareholders, but it's much more complex for SMEs. They have many, many more stakeholders, and also, big companies, their ESG sustainability compliance disclosure burden will pass along supply chain to them. So that calls action, really, everybody should join hands and work on solutions together, not alone. So, so as I said, together we will find a way to get help SME get there.
Thank you.
Pretty much aligned, actually.
We did not stage this, by the way.
It seems very convenient. Everyone's ready to collaborate, but it's great to hear. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this afternoon, and thank you to the panelists for sharing your insights and your calls to action. Thank you.